Okay, I'm starting the recording. Okay, so welcome everybody to day 3 of the 2025 Delta CX Hive Conference. Special extra thanks to Dr. Seth for filling in for a speaker who unfortunately pulled out a few weeks ago, but we'll just say onward, upwards, and upgrade. So Seth, over to you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and it's nice to have a chance to talk with each of you today, tonight, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you happen to be around the world. Personally, I am sitting in my hardened bunker, which is actually a middle school here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, on the east coast of the United States, where local time places us at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's great to be with all of you today. We're going to be starting day 3, kicking it off, talking about job transition. And transition is perhaps a euphemism for many of us. It's not always as pretty as a transition. So we'll talk a little bit about bouncing back from setbacks to making a comeback. And that's kind of what we're going to spend the next half an hour going over. And I apologize in advance for my cheesy transitions and animations. I figure I've got the tools, I'm going to use them. So, but you guys use this stuff so much better than I do. So greetings. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, chances are you have been impacted by the culture shifts and restructuring and reprioritizing and tsunamis of layoffs in the tech sector. Maybe you're navigating the uncertainty of job loss yourself. You're in shock and wondering about your next move. Maybe you're struggling with a feeling of betrayal or burnout in your workplace. I'm here not only as a psychologist, but maybe more importantly, as someone who believes in your resilience. Today is about you. It's about your story, your healing, your comeback. I'm Dr. Seth Finkle. I am a psychologist with 30 years of practice under my belt as a clinician, a consultant, a teacher. My primary areas of expertise are neurodiversity and learning differences, major mental health conditions and mental illness, psychological assessment, and for most of my career, school-based intervention with kids, with children and adolescent and young adults. And through my involvement with Delta CX as a guest presenter over the past several years, I've been developing a special interest in the pressures and challenges that professionals face in the tech industry, particularly the unique spaces of CX and UX. We're going to start off talking today about the impact of job loss through the lens of behavioral science. Oops, we'll already have a glitch in my clicking, so there we go, just put them all up there. So we'll be talking about behavioral science and psychology, but we're going to spend most of this next half hour discussing not just impact of job loss and how much it sucks, but how to embark on the road to a comeback. Now, to be clear, I'm not a job coach. I don't have endless experience searching for employment in the UX or broader tech industries. So I can't tell you about how to restructure your resume or your best approach to a job interview. Those are important things, and we may give you some suggestions about where to go for that. But instead, my experience is in psychology. And so we'll be talking about how to rebuild your confidence, how to reimagine your career trajectory, how to become more compassionate towards yourself and increase your resiliency. And if you are someone who this has already affected, this is largely targeted to you. And so buckle up, we're going to get you through this. If you are not someone who is going through this, if you are struggling with workplace burnout, or perhaps you're just happily working in the tech sector and wondering what all the fuss is about, in which case that is amazing. And I wish you continued success in that. That's fantastic. At some point or another, many of us, I dare say most of us, based on the statistics, and we'll talk about those this morning or this evening, the numbers tell us that there will probably be a time where you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to make a shift. And when that happens, it is often a really challenging, destabilizing situation. So this information may or may not be instantly relevant for you. I'm hopeful that it never is, but there's a pretty good chance that this might be information you're going to need at some point. So why do we work? If you're like me, chances are you like to eat. You enjoy having a roof over your head. Work provides us with a paycheck, sure. But it's so much more than that. It also gives us a predictable routine in our day, a structure. It provides you with daily social connections, with a sense of purpose, with a plan for the future, and with a focus to our attention and our energy every day. And for most of us, it's a huge part of our identity. A few minutes ago, I introduced myself to you, and I didn't say I was married to an amazing person for 30 years. Did I tell you how proud I am to be the dad for 3 incredible adult humans? Did I mention our guinea pigs or my lifetime spent making music? I did not. I told you my name, and then I gave you my professional credentials, my work identity. That's what we do, right? Work gives us status and recognition and belonging and self-esteem. Research shows us that having a strong connection between our job and our sense of self can be tied to our overall well-being. What happens when you lose that job? For starters, obviously, material stress, money troubles, we worry about our ability to support ourselves and those who depend on us financially. Job loss can also create conflict and tension in our closest relationships. They can cut us off from the people with whom we've been spending half our waking lives for some period of time, and a loss of our predictable daily routine. And job loss also hits us with fears about the meaning of this in the big picture, career setbacks, a loss of confidence, loss of the emotional attachments we have to our job, our team, our project, or our company. And as your work may profoundly affect your sense of who you are, job loss may leave you feeling lost at sea or even completely worthless as a person. If it's not already abundantly clear, we need to recognize that layoffs aren't just economic events. They're psychological ones too. For many of us, it's not just about losing a job. It's about losing a future you imagined. It can leave us with feelings of shock, disbelief, shame, confusion, sadness, and anger, and frankly, all too often, anxiety and depression, and even suicidal thoughts. Let's take just a few minutes to look at the psychological impact of job loss through the perspectives of narrative identity theory, a model of emotional impact to major change, especially organizational change, and some interesting factoids about how burnout, work stress, and job loss affect our mental health. So narrative identity theory was pioneered by Dr. Dan P. McAdams, a psychologist and professor at Northwestern University. And his theory suggests that we each construct an internal evolving story of our life to make sense of our experience and to create a coherent, unified sense of our purpose and the meaning of everything we've been through. This narrative serves as a framework for us to understand how the many past and present and future events of our lives fit together. So one of the key concepts is that of an internalized life story. Your narrative identity incorporates your past memories, your present experiences, your imagined future or futures, creates a cohesive account of your life. It's not a fixed or static account of your life, but it's a dynamic story that's continuously shaped and reshaped by what you experience and how you interpret those experiences. McAdams also emphasizes the importance of this unfolding narrative in helping us make sense of our lives, understand our personal history, and anticipate future possibilities. It's not static, it evolves and it adapts to our new experiences and our changing perspectives of the self. The narrative identity also provides a structure for us to understand how all these different disparate life events that we go through relate to each other and how they contribute to an overall sense of what we call ourself. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't also note that our narrative identity is influenced by cultural norms, by where we live and what we believe and who we surround ourselves by and where we come from, and the prevailing stories and themes within your unique cultural identity. So what does this do for us? According to this theory, our personal narrative identifies our sense of coherence to help us connect our past, present, and future to give us a sense of continuity and wholeness. It inspires us to produce and pursue goals and create meaning and find purpose in our lives. It helps us to cope with adversity and adapt to change and find meaning in challenging experiences. And the stories that we tell ourselves and others about our lives shape who we are and who we believe we're becoming. So this general concept is something that I'm going to weave through what we're going to talk about today. This idea that the story that you tell yourself, the narrative that you've created up to this point, and the changes in those narrative are vitally important to how you come out the other side. Let's also talk about the Kubler-Ross change curve. This was originally identified to explore the 5 stages of grief experienced by terminally ill patients. It's since been adapted into a framework to explore the emotional impact of change on people. It was originally developed by Swiss-American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back in 1969. And these stages of change are often used as a guide to help us to understand the emotional stages of grief or change, and also how best to support people as they begin to adapt and accept what they're going through. Suffice it to say, humans are hardwired to dislike change. And major change is especially disruptive. It creates uncertainty and emotional turmoil. And the way in which we adapt to that, while not identical from person to person, does have certain research-based themes or stages that people often go through. And Kubler-Ross attempted to put these together. You may be somewhat familiar with her stages of grief. These aren't always linear or exact for everyone, but they do tend to reflect some of the most common human experiences as we adjust to loss. The change curve adds an additional overlay to these stages by adding a y-axis, showing the impact that each of these can have on our level of morale and self-confidence. And as you can see here, moving from left to right over time, our confidence tends to start off higher but drop for the first half of the process, going from shock to denial to frustration, and ultimately for most people settling into a time of the lows of depression. The second half of the adjustment process sees a kind of rebound, where our morale typically increases as we go from experimentation into decisiveness and finally acceptance or integration of the change into our lives. Again, people overuse this, they over-apply it. This is not identical for everyone, so don't be concerned if your path doesn't look exactly like this one. It's just a framework for understanding a common way that people adjust to major change or loss. And the mental health challenges faced by UX people, designers, and researchers, particularly in the context of job loss and layoffs, are significant. Over half of tech professionals experience depression or anxiety in their work, according to recent estimates, often due to high-pressure work environments, challenging workplace demands, and crushingly long hours. My guess is I don't need to tell any of you this. Further, WebMD Health Services indicates that nearly 2/3 of tech employees feel physically and emotionally drained by their job demands, with nearly half considering quitting their current employment within 6 months. Over 3/4 of tech workers report that layoffs have negatively impacted their mental health, leading to increased anxiety and depression. Unemployment in the tech sector has been linked to a 2.5 times higher suicide risk and a 15 to 20% increase in early mortality. I only have a couple more of these. I know this is the bleak part. The degree of UX layoffs recently in the tech industry is disproportionately high. Again, this is not news to anyone listening to me right now. UX positions account for nearly 10% or greater of tech layoffs overall. And UX Magazine reports that between the years of 2022 and 2023, job postings for UX designers and researchers each dropped by over 70%. I know that this is a dark time and that people are struggling. What do we do if this affects us? All right, let's shift gears. That's been doom and gloom. Let's start building up on the second half of the Kubler-Ross curve here. A couple of ways of thinking about rebuilding our confidence, which, by the way, is built. It's not bestowed upon us. We're not born with it. It's not a trait. It's a skill, and it's something that we can work towards and build. And if it's shaken, we can rebuild. One theory comes back to a mainstay in the field of psychology and social science, Albert Bandura, who spoke quite a bit about the notion of self-efficacy. The idea that if we build belief in our abilities through mastery experiences that we have, we can ultimately grow our confidence. Confidence, according to Bender, comes from those experiences of mastery, those wins that we've had, those successes, as well as looking at social models around us, being persuaded by charismatic speakers like me, and emotional regulation through our own lives. One thing that I've spoken about with folks in Delta CX before, there's video of conversations about this with Debbie, is the notion of imposter syndrome. And maybe you feel like you went through that at an early point in your career and you're kind of past it. Maybe you've never really lost it. The notion of imposter syndrome, which comes from the work of Dr. Valerie Young, talks about how we feel inadequate. We don't feel like we deserve to be doing the work we're doing. And Debbie and I have talked about this with folks before on her podcast. And one of the things we've covered is that this is different than just being early in your field. There's a lot of people who just aren't ready yet to be experts at what they're doing. They just got started, and it's unrealistic to believe that they have any kind of superpower at this. But it's different when you're feeling like you've really got a handle on what you're doing, you've been at it for a while, you've gained experience, and that is shaken by a job loss. You didn't lose your edge in a situation like that. And while you may ask yourself, was I ever really good to begin with? Chances are the answer is, yeah, you kind of were. The fact of the matter is, it is a normal thing to have that shaken when we have a loss like this. In unstable systems, even our top performers feel fraudulent. That is normal. The system itself is failing, not you. One of the things we have to do when we're laid off is shift from an external to an internal measure of success. Lots of times tech and UX professionals rely on external metrics. Think salary, team feedback, stakeholder approval, good reviews on deliverables, stuff that people have said about you that make you feel validated. And that's normal. Most of us need that or even crave that kind of external validation. But layoffs break that loop. We have to rebuild using internal validation for a time. We need to lie back on our values, on the growth we've made, on our purpose alignment, our ability to see that what we do matches what we are good at, what we've been capable of doing up to this point. It's recognizing that we can derive value not necessarily from exclusively external sources, but from our own sense of what we can do. If that's not where you are right now, part of the goal of rebuilding confidence is to get back to that place where your narrative can pivot, can shift back to a recognition that you do have skills, you have abilities, and you may be very good at what you do, that a job layoff is not necessarily emblematic of your success or failure as a person or as a professional. There are a couple of actionable practices I can throw into this for you. One of these might be to create a confidence file of past feedback and achievements for yourself. This is something that, frankly, if you're not in the process of struggling with the feelings of being laid off, you may actually benefit from even while you're working and you're doing well. Keep a log of your wins. Keep a log of the things that make you feel like you're good at what you do. You never know when you're going to need that. And if you've not done it and you're in need of it today, when you're ready, begin to go back through. Because I think you'll find there are things that you can tuck away, people you've spoken to, experiences you've had, moments or documents or projects that you can look back on and say, that was really strong, that was good. Journaling can be extremely beneficial for people. I know this is kind of an easy throwaway thing that most people in the therapy field say, just journal. And doing it in a totally free-form way has its benefits. But in this case, I'm going to suggest journal about self-appreciation, but also journal about the painful things you're going through and what you're experiencing. Put some of this stuff down on paper. It helps to talk it out. It also helps to write it out sometimes. And for some of us, that can be an extremely powerful way of being able to kind of get our head wrapped around where we are and what we're doing. And I've noted here the idea of a UX hero timeline. Sounds kind of fancy. Debbie likes to talk about low ego action heroes. This is your place to do that. Map your value creation, visualize your career milestones, look at what you've done to this point. It's easy to focus on the last point, the last thing that happened. Go all the way back through. Map out your career. Look at your key projects, the lessons you've learned, the growth moments you've had. Circle what you're most proud of, not necessarily what paid you the most. Look at the things that got you to this point. If you've been laid off in your very first job, obviously, this is going to be a challenge. But look at the things that allowed you to get that first job, to get landed in that first opportunity. Think about the things that have gotten you to this point over the course of your life. If you've been working in the field for a while, this is a great time to really kind of dive into that even more. All right. I'm going to pick up my pace because I'm coming up on the end of my half hour. So let's do a couple things here. I'm going to speak very briefly on a few of these. The notion of liminality. This is a concept that goes back to anthropologist Victor Turner. We can embrace the transitional phases between events, between moments of stableness as opportunities for growth. Layoffs force you into a liminal phase. You're betwixt and between your past identity and your future role. I'm not going to give you toxic positivity and say that's a wonderful thing, but I am going to say that through the right lens, with the right frame of mind, it can become a set of opportunities. It might not be the best thing that's ever happened to you, but frankly, who knows? Liminality provides us with the possibilities that lie in change. This is where reinvention becomes possible. Consider your options. This is a time for you to consider that maybe there's other things you want to be doing. Maybe there's other ways you want to work within your chosen field. Maybe there's other offshoots of what you want to do or other uses for your skill set that can allow you to move forward. There are more UX professionals now pursuing multi-income project-based careers after layoff. It's hard to find security in a job because it's a diverse, evolving skill ecosystem. Swim, keep swimming, benefit from that. Look at the skills you've already amassed, build others if you need to, explore other possibilities, consider contract roles in various kinds of things or even fractional kinds of assignments. Build up small case studies for yourself. Engage in things that you can leverage to be able to get whatever that next job is going to be for yourself. Consider freelancing if necessary. I'd love to talk a lot about this. I'm going to talk a little about this and steer you towards a bunch of ideas. So I'm just going to kind of hit you with a few things really quickly here. Resilience is a process. It's built in micro moments. It's not always about being positive. It's about showing up over and over and over, especially when it's hard. It's about moving on to who you're going to be next. So one of the things we can talk about here is the notion of psychological flexibility. This is a model of acceptance and commitment therapy, and there are practitioners of ACT who are out there. If you have the means to be able to access this based on the fact that you still either have insurance or you've got someone that you can work on this with at a sliding scale or some kind of reduced fee rate, this is the ability to change and adapt to change while staying true to your values. It's about being present, accepting the discomfort, choosing values-based action for yourself. And it's a model that you can learn about. There are books about this, and there are things that you can do. I apologize for background noise. Working in a middle school is often a loud experience, especially this time of year. Self-compassion, be kind to yourself. Dr. Kristen Neff is one of the experts on this, and she talks a lot about the need to treat yourself with kindness during challenging times. It's vitally important. And there are zillions of micro habits that you can build into your life. Build to-do lists every day. If you're not working, it's even more important to build these things in for yourself. Keeping tabs on your basic health, setting small goals, one thing a day. Over time, you're going to build more and more of these as the day goes on and as the weeks go on. Learn how to reflect on yourself. And again, a micro way. How did I live my values today? What did I do to take care of myself today? Focus on self-care as much as you possibly can. Set goals that are achievable. Set limits with yourself on things like doom scrolling and toxic narratives that you might pick up. based on overuse of things like social media. Set good limits on yourself about things like alcohol and nicotine use and various kinds of drugs and unhealthy things in your lifestyle, passive pursuits that are not going to help you to move forward. It's easy to get stuck. You need to rest and take care of yourself, but you also need to continue to feed your mind and feed your life. Reach out to people who you haven't talked to. It's okay to reach out to people from your old job, unless you're explicitly barred from doing that, in which case, wow. But the fact of the matter is, talk to the people that you are close to in your life. Continue to maintain those connections. They're vitally important. And find resources that are going to help you to be able to move forward. And I'm going to share with you a couple of those in just a moment. So to wrap up, you're going to do things that are going to help you to move forward. It doesn't have to be a step backward. This is a transformation, and it's an opportunity. By focusing on the things that in all likelihood you know are going to be beneficial to you, that's going to be useful. It doesn't mean you can't grieve. Absolutely, by all means, do so. But don't wallow in it. Allow yourself to move on to the next proactive steps in one little piece at a time so that you're able to move forward. Use the resources that are available to you for growth. Start small and build on these things. You are people who know how to create opportunities. You are someone who works in UX. You're by your very nature a helper, a creator, a critical thinker. You're an innovator. It's time to put those skills to use and build the satisfying, productive future that you rightly deserve for yourself. And of course, those traits are just generalizations, characteristics that are common to folks in UX. How about you personally? What's one part of yourself you want to bring into your next chapter, no matter what? Think about that, focus on that, and use that as an anchor to help move you forward. When you're ready, after you've grieved and mourned the losses you've experienced, when you're ready to proceed beyond into a new opportunity, start looking. Those opportunities are out there. They are oftentimes going to look different than what you expect them to look like. That is the nature of the market at this moment. But with patience and persistence and self-compassion, you are going to find your next thing. I can tell you that of the people I've talked to who have experienced job losses, and unfortunately there are quite a few, the vast majority of people are able to find something that gives them a sense of fulfillment, a sense of purpose, and ultimately allows them to at least be able to continue to survive, if not thrive, on a daily basis. And those small opportunities can often be parlayed into larger ones. In the meantime, I've got a bunch of possible resources for you. There's a bunch of really good books. I will cut off the T in involuntary exit, but that's a book specifically for bouncing back for women after layoffs. It's a particularly great book by Robin Merle. There are some other really good ones that are out there. The book by Seth called The Dip actually talks about when it's time to quit what you're doing and move on to something else. You'll notice that I have proudly featured a book here by someone you might know called Debbie Levitt, called Life After Tech. It's a great little book, and I had the honor of being one of the people to help kind of co-edit this thing. Not getting any kickback for saying it, but it's great. And I think it provides you with a really clear, structured way of thinking about rising up and choosing what you want to do next in an active way, rather than simply resigning yourself to falling into what the next thing is. Again, there's a variety of ways to build things, to upskill for yourself, to utilize other people who are in the field and benefit from their wisdom, and to build mentorship for yourself through opportunities. I'm going to recommend two things in particular. One is that you seek out Debbie personally, who is doing coaching, and she can absolutely be a vital asset for people, especially if you know her. Use that expertise. She's someone who's been through a lot of experiences and brings a lot of wisdom to the table. And I will also recommend her book highly. I think it's a really concrete, specific, actionable way of being able to kind of move forward, whether you're looking for something else to do within the tech industry or whether you're looking for something completely different at this point because you're feeling fed up. It's a great resource. And finally, I'd be remiss as a psychologist if I didn't recommend mental health resources for yourself. And there's a lot of them out there. And I know if you have had a job loss, there is a chance that you've also had a loss of insurance. And this is particularly painful to people as it limits your access to mental health supports at a time that you desperately need it. There are various ways of doing this that are low cost, in some cases that are free. And some of these resources are of variable quality. Some are better than others, but I've listed a few here that I know have a good reputation for the most part, and in some cases afford you the opportunity to try different therapists for a little bit of time to be able to get a sense of who's a good fit for you. This is a time where there's actually possibilities of being able to talk with someone, even if you don't have strong insurance resources to be able to do that. So by all means, if you're struggling with this, if this goes beyond just feeling like I'm a little bit down, if you're really having difficulty functioning, this is a really important time to be able to invest in yourself and your mental health. All right, let me wrap myself up here.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for that. We do have a question.
All right.
And quickly, I wanted to just echo something Seth was saying and just remind everybody that I think everybody or probably everybody today has had at least one job. And sometimes a good thing to anchor on is you got the job. Okay, unfortunately, you might have lost it later, but you got the job. You can do it. You did it. You can do it again. We have an anonymous question that says, what's the difference between imposter syndrome and a lack of self-confidence, if any?
It's a good question. So a lack of self-confidence obviously is a little more general. We can have a lack of confidence in our ability as a dating partner, a romantic partner, in our ability to just carry ourselves in social conversations, our ability to think on our feet. There's a lot of different kinds of self-confidence. Imposter syndrome is specifically focused on your job role, your ability to perform the work that you are given to do. And we all know, if you've worked in any workplace for more than 5 seconds, you know that there are different levels of qualification for doing what we do. Lord knows, I've worked with a number of folks where I question why and how they got to be doing the kinds of work they were doing. The fact of the matter is, I too, on a routine basis, find myself struggling with, am I really good at what I do? Do I actually have what it takes to do this job? And I've been doing this again for 3 decades. I've been dedicating my whole self to doing this work, or at least my professional self. So the fact of the matter is, imposter syndrome is a kind of low self-confidence, but it's low self-confidence around specifically your job role and your ability to do that role. And it's a fairly normative experience for a lot of people. It's part of the developmental process of starting a new position, entering into a new field or a new pursuit. Most of us feel like we don't deserve to be doing what we're doing, and it takes us a little time. You have to kind of, to coin a phrase, fake it till you make it sometimes. You have to be able to kind of put in the effort. And over time, we get those external validations that help us to believe, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I don't suck at this. And over time, if you really stick to it and you push through those dips that Seth Gruden talks about, you get to a place where you really feel like you're good at something and you don't need that external validation as much. That makes you a little more resistant to imposter syndrome.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. If you're going to ask one, maybe give me a quick emoji so I know to wait for you to type something. Otherwise, we would wrap up and take a little break before I'm going to give you the next talk. I didn't see any emojis. So Seth, thank you so much, especially for coming in semi-last minute to help people out with this stuff. And I will stop this recording.
Okay. Thanks, great. Thanks, everybody.